In Chapter 4, we are going to explore emotions and moods. Let's first start out by defining affect, emotions, and moods. An affect is a general term that covers a broad range of feelings that people experience. Emotions are caused by a specific event, are very brief, and are accompanied by distinct facial expressions. Moods, on the other hand, are cognitive in nature. They have an unclear and a general cause, and they can last for several hours or even days. Exhibit 4-1 summarizes what we just said on the previous slide. It's important to note that affect can be experienced in the form of moods or emotions. Also, emotions are more action-oriented, meaning we tend to act out when we experience them in some form. Some examples of different emotions are anger, fear, sadness, happiness, disgust, surprise. Moods are more two-dimensional. They are either positive or negative in effect, and they're composed of multiple specific emotions. Though not all psychologists agree, there do seem to be 6 basic emotions that emerge in studies. I also mentioned this on the previous slide, but here they are again. They are anger, fear, sadness, happiness, disgust, and surprise. All other emotions fall under these 6 categories. Sometimes as many as 12 emotions are identified, but for the purpose of this class, I want you to know these 6. Researchers have been studying what are called moral emotions. These are emotions that have moral implications because of our instant judgment of a situation that evokes them. Interestingly, research indicates that our responses to moral emotions differ from our responses to other emotions. Moral emotions are learned, usually in childhood, and thus they are not universal like innate emotions. Because morality is a construct that differs between cultures, so do moral emotions. Therefore, we need to be aware of the moral aspects of a situation that trigger our emotions and make certain that we understand the context before we act, especially in the workplace. Here, I've included some examples of moral emotions. They are sympathy for the suffering, anger about injustice to others, and contempt for those who behave unethically. Emotions can be classified into 2 categories, either positive or negative. A favorable evaluation or feeling is positive, and examples of these are joy and gratitude. The negative category includes the negative evaluation or feeling, and examples of these are anger and guilt. It's important to note emotions cannot be neutral. Emotions are grouped into general mood states instead of isolating one particular emotion. Our basic moods carry positive and negative effects, and they cannot be neutral. The positive effect is the mood dimension consisting of positive emotions such as excitement, enthusiasm, and elation at the high end. The negative effect is a mood dimension consisting of emotions such as nervousness, stress, and anxiety at the high end. It is important to remember that these states impact how employees perceive reality. Thereby, the moods can impact the work of employees. At zero input, most people experience a mildly positive mood. This is referred to as positivity offset. People in most cultures experience certain positive and negative emotions, but the frequency and tendency does vary somewhat. It's important also to note that negative emotions lead to negative moods. We think about events that cause strong negative emotions 5 times as long as those that create strong positive ones. Do emotions make us irrational? There are some who think that emotions are linked to irrationality and that expressing emotions in public may be damaging to your career status. However, research has shown that emotions are necessary for rational thinking. They help us make better decisions and help us understand the world around us. If we are going to make decisions, we need to incorporate both thinking and feeling. There are many things that impact our mood and emotions. Personality is a key component and will definitely impact the intensity of the emotions we feel. The day and time of the week is a common pattern for all of us as well. Exhibit 4-3 in your text shows the results of recent research related to time of day. Positive emotions have their greatest effect in the mid-morning and then remain stable before rising again until midnight. In Exhibit 4-4, we can see how the day of the week affects emotions. As the week progresses, positive effects of emotions increases while negative effects decrease. So positive emotions are considerably higher towards the end of the week than they are at the beginning. This tends to be true among many cultures. Weather is thought to have an impact on our emotions, but there is no proven effect. Illusory correlation occurs when we associate two events that in reality have no connection. This is what we find with weather. It appears to have no effect on mood. Does this surprise you? Stress is an important factor, and even at low levels, it can cause our mood to change. It is important to maintain a low level of stress to help control psychological and physical health. Social activities have been shown to have a positive impact on our moods. This could be a physical outlet such as playing in a basketball league or as simple as going out to dinner with friends. Some additional sources of emotion and moods include such factors as sleep and exercise. It is important to get enough and high quality levels of sleep. Physical activity can also aid in keeping our moods upbeat, particularly for those people who are depressed. Some characteristics that are beyond our control can impact our moods, such as age and sex. Elderly people tend to have fewer negative emotions, while women tend to express their emotions readily and their moods tend to last longer. Research has shown that this is due more to cultural socialization than to biology. In many jobs, there is an implied agreement on the types of emotions that should be expressed. For example, waitresses are supposed to be friendly and cheerful, whether they are currently feeling that emotion or not. Here are some other examples. Funeral directors are supposed to display sad emotions, and doctors are supposed to remain neutral. In the general workplace, it is agreed upon that workers should be courteous and not hostile to coworkers. An employee's actual emotions are their felt emotions. The emotions that are required or deemed appropriate by the employer are called displayed emotions. Displaying fake emotions requires suppressing real ones and acting. Surface acting occurs when an employee displays the appropriate emotions even when he or she doesn't feel those emotions. Deep acting occurs when the employee actually changes his or her internal feelings to match the display rules. This level of acting can be very stressful. Emotional dissonance is when there are inconsistencies between the emotions people feel and the emotions they project. This is a predictor for job burnout. It causes a decline in job performance and it lowers job satisfaction. It's important to counteract the effects of emotional labor and emotional dissonance. When we practice mindfulness, this is when we objectively and deliberately evaluate our emotional situation in the moment. It is an emotion regulation technique. The affective events theory, also known as AET, demonstrates that employees react emotionally to things that happen to them at work, which can influence their job performance and job satisfaction. The intensity of these responses will be based on emotion and mood. Work events trigger positive or negative emotional reactions to which employees' personalities and moods predispose them to respond with a greater or lesser intensity. An example of this is, how would you feel if you found out your company was downsizing? Affective events theory offers two important messages. The first is emotions provide valuable insight and information into how workplace hassles and uplifting events influence employee performance and satisfaction. They are predictors about behavior. In addition, emotions and the events that cause them should not be ignored at work because they accumulate over time. Emotional intelligence is a person's ability to be self-aware, which is to recognize his or her own experienced emotions and to understand them. More significantly, it is the ability to observe and direct emotions in others and to regulate the emotions in a cascading relationship. People who know their emotions and can read emotional cues are likely to be most effective. The process of identifying and modifying emotions you feel is called emotional regulation. As you might suspect, not everyone is equally good at regulating emotions. Individuals who are higher in the personality trait of neuroticism have more trouble doing so and often find their moods are beyond their ability to control. The workplace environment has an effect on an individual's tendency to employ emotional regulation. In general, diversity in the work group increases the likelihood that you will regulate your emotions. Racial diversity also has an effect. If diversity is low, the minority will engage in emotional regulation, perhaps to fit in with the majority race as much as possible. If diversity is high and many different races are represented, the majority race will employ emotional regulation, perhaps to integrate themselves with the whole group. These findings suggest a beneficial outcome of diversity. It may cause us to regulate our emotions more consciously and effectively. It's important to note that there is a downside to trying to change the way you feel. The effort involved can be exhausting. From another perspective, research suggests that avoiding negative emotional experiences is less likely to lead to positive moods than does seeking out positive emotional experiences. Researchers of emotional regulation often study the strategies people employ to change their emotions. One technique we have discussed in this chapter is surface acting, or literally putting on a face of appropriate response to a given situation. Surface acting doesn't change the emotions though, so the regulation effect is minimal, and the result of daily surface acting leads to exhaustion and fewer organizational citizenship behaviors. Deep acting, another technique we have covered, is less psychologically costly than service acting because the employee is actually trying to experience the emotion. Emotional regulation through deep acting can have a positive impact on work outcomes. One technique of emotional regulation is emotional suppression, or suppressing initial emotional responses to situations. This response seems to facilitate practical thinking in the short term. However, it appears to be helpful only when a strongly negative event would elicit a distressed emotional reaction in a crisis situation. Thus, unless we're truly in a crisis situation, acknowledging rather than suppressing our emotional responses to situations and reevaluating events after they occur yields the best outcomes. Cognitive reappraisal, or reframing our outlook on an emotional situation, is one way to effectively regulate emotions. The results suggest that cognitive reappraisal may allow people to change their emotional responses even when the subject matter is highly emotionally charged. Another technique with potential for emotional regulations is social sharing, also known as venting. Research shows that the open expression of emotion can help individuals to regulate their emotions as opposed to keeping emotions bottled up. Social sharing can reduce anger reactions when people talk about the facts of a bad situation, their feelings about the situation, or any other positive aspect of the situation. Note that while emotional regulation techniques can help us cope with difficult workplace situations, research indicates that the effect varies. While there is much promise in emotional regulation techniques, the best route to a positive workplace is to recruit positive-minded individuals and train leaders to manage their moods, job attitudes, and performance. Finally, emotional regulation has important and ethical implications. Some people might argue that controlling your emotions is unethical because it requires a degree of acting. Recent research has found that acting like you're in a good mood might actually put you in a good mood. Understanding emotions and moods can help us explain and predict selection, decision making, creativity, motivation, leadership, interpersonal effect, negotiation, customer service, job attitudes, and deviant workplace behaviors. When it comes to selection, Emotional intelligence should be a hiring factor to ensure employee fit. Positive emotions can lead to better decisions and often more creative ones as well. A positive mood affects expectations of success by all people, which contributes to their motivation for performance. Leadership is affected by mood and emotion, as people in a positive emotional state are found to be more receptive of messages from leaders. Emotions, those both held and displayed, are effective contributors to negotiation, as the potential impact of displayed emotion on negotiation is large. The best negotiators are probably those who remain emotionally detached. Emotions affect customer service in a number of ways, ranging from the attitude of the employee to the effectiveness of communication with customers to overall feelings about the outcome. Research has found that people who are on an emotional high at the end of the day take the positive feelings home with them, and vice versa. This good mood, however, tends to dissipate overnight. Negative emotions can lead to deviant workplace behavior. These are actions that violate norms and threaten the organization. Once aggression starts, it's likely that other people will become angry and aggressive, so the stage is set for a serious escalation of negative behavior. Managers, therefore, need to stay connected with their employees to gauge emotions and emotional intensity levels. In addition, research has found that workers asked to do dangerous work while in a negative emotional state are more likely to have accidents. Selecting positive team members can have a contagion effect as positive moods transmit from team member to team member. I've posted a video here that you can watch about emotions at work. This concludes Chapter 4, where we covered emotions and moods and how they can impact the workplace. Please let me know if you have any questions.